I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome back to what should be an exciting school year. We had the pleasure of touring all the schools as we do every year as a board, and we're happy to report that the schools look great, and there was a ton of work done over the summer, which we greatly appreciate. The custodial staff, all of Steve Thompson's crew, has just done an amazing job making sure that the schools are ready for all the students to start on Tuesday. So good start to the school year.
We were also talking about the great pride that we see in the people who are working here and who have done all of this work this summer. It is amazing the dedication that they have to making this place not only look great for when kids come, but sustainable environment for the future, and that they are improving our facilities at every turn. So we are very grateful for all that hard work.
Just for the community, we take the tour every year, although I wasn't on it this year, I was not permitted on the bus. We take the tour because it actually is a requirement. It's a legal requirement that the Board of Education inspect the district facilities every year. And for the parents who will be in the various schools, as was said, we think you'll be very pleased with the condition of the school. And every year around this time, a rumor would spread around Byram Hill that the schools aren't opening on time. It was every year, the schools aren't open. They're opening on time. So have your kids ready and willing, and we're ready for them too.
They look fantastic.
Special thanks to Steve Thompson and his crew, and to Kelly for overseeing that department for the first summer.
Thanks for all the hard work.
Kelly didn't sleep either.
And it won't be quiet in the fall because projects will continue. So first item on the agenda that we have is item 4, comments from the public. Are there any items that are not on the agenda tonight that anybody wants to be heard at this time? Hearing none. I will go to item 5, which is to adopt the agenda, and there are 2 revisions which I will go through right now before we ask for a motion. So I'm asking for an adoption of the agenda with revision to item 8.22, which is an addition, authorization to rescind item 13.11 from the July 9th, 2019 board meeting to contract with Student Assistance Services Corp. for the 2019-20 fiscal year, and then also the addition of item 8.23, authorization to execute contract with Student Assistance Services Corp. for the 2019-20 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, motion carries. So now we go to our consent agenda for personnel, special services, and business, items 6, 7, and 8. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right. We have no unfinished business tonight.
Keep it that way, Mr. President.
Something how I doubt it, but we'll enjoy it for August. But we do have some new business. So the first item on new business, 10.1, which is committee assignments. So we have passed around circulated committee assignments for this year. And if anybody has any comments on them, feel free to share them at this time. But we try to, wherever possible, accommodate, interests that various board members have, and divide up the responsibilities because all the committee work is important. I think just a couple things to note that's a little bit new this year. One of which is the Guidance Advisory Committee, which Lara and Lori will serve on, and then the second is that this is really the first kind of full year of our newly charged Finance Advisory Committee. So that's exciting, and we look forward to that being really productive. But other than that, much of the structure really stays similar to last year, with just some changes in where board members are slotted. And then lastly, for BHEF, we decided that we would stick with the rotation because it worked for the BHEF and it worked really well for us to all get exposure to all the work that they do, all the great work that they do. So that's on the sheet as well. So just take note of the night that you have. And if you can't do that night, we can always work on swapping around. Any questions?
I just want to note that I was successful in 20 years of not being on the policy committee.
I nominated you.
And I have a bullying complaint to register with the Board of Education. I was bullied.
It's not bullying, it's just meanness.
This may be my finest accomplishment.
Way to go, Mr. President.
It's funny all around.
We welcome you, Ira.
It's a wonderful committee.
It's a
It
lot.
really
I
is.
can't say how I'm looking forward to it.
I'm sure reading legal documents is
I will,
exactly what you want to spend extra time doing.
I will be there.
It's very
looking forward.
fulfilling. It was one of the most fulfilling
Yeah, it is.
positions I've had.
Yeah, I've already spoken to Jason about it, so don't worry.
That's great.
Anybody else have any
Tell us how you.
thoughts, comments on the
good.
committees?
Nice work, thank you, Scott.
All right, we can go to item 10.2, which is board goals. So we wanted to start the process of talking about the goals, and thanks to Jen and Tim and Gina, they certainly thought through some of the things that they thought was important to focus on. I looked at it as well and put some input into this document, and so this is sort of the collective document that we have right now, which is obviously a draft, and certainly subject to any thoughts that anyone may have.
I just want to say something really for Jason, whom I guess my first meeting actually was sitting here, so my personal welcome.
Thank you.
There's always a tension in board goals between determining what's a goal and what is what we call ongoing work of the board. And some years it's clear, and some years it's not so clear. So, clearly we'd like to, I want to hear what you think about all this in time. But that's always the sort of the tension we balance because we are a board that does similar things every year, and they're not necessarily goals. And then there are things that pop up which become goals, and then there are things that no one can see that happen. And in a sense, they may become goals, but we have to address them. So and in years past, sometimes we didn't get finished with our goals till November, but we've been pretty successful recently at really wrapping up our goal very early in the school year, which I think is helpful for the board as a whole in terms of where we're going.
Right.
But I just wanted to mention that because sometimes it's really not clear what a goal is as opposed to ongoing work of the board. It's something maybe you can give some consideration to as well.
And the other thing to note about this whole process is it really does inform the agenda for much of the year and much of what's worked on. And even when you look at the content of our board meetings, a lot of it will be to revisit these items that we all thought were important and to measure ourselves at the end of the year to make sure that collectively the district made progress on them. So it definitely matters. I mean, this is a document that we live by.
And a lot of thought was put into it last year in sort of the framework of these 4 umbrella topics, and Jen was really helpful in implementing that, and I think it's really helped focus us on our goals, because these are, as Scott was saying, important things that we do revisit all year long.
And I could just give a very quick highlight and feel free to chime in on what's changed from last year and some of the new things that are being focused on. So in excellence in teaching and learning, the first 2 bullets really try to capture, the first one captures a lot of new curriculum that will be coming down the pike, some of which is state mandated, but even when it's state mandated, there's a lot of choice in terms of how we roll it out. We want to roll it out thoughtfully. Sometimes it's not state mandated, but we want to make the change. Then the second is really just so much of the innovation that's happening and how students are being taught. Then wellness remains, the data point remains. Leadership is not here, but obviously is not going away because we have leadership efforts in all of our buildings, to Ira's point before about what becomes just kind of part of the
Student
fabric.
leadership.
Student leadership, sorry, yeah. Then on fiscal accountability, we took out as a separate bullet enrollment analysis, just because we've done a lot of analysis. We'll continue to do it. We'll continue to stay on top of new development. We didn't totally obliterate it. I mean, it's still very much in the budget study bullet, so it's something we'll continue to monitor. We added the concept of just, as we get closer, although we're still years away, but closer to our indebtedness expiring, do we want to refinance it or not? That's something that we'll have to start analyzing. And then we obviously have the transportation department study in there because that's important. And then kept per pupil because we want to continue to be focused on that. Succession planning is still there, reform and advocacy is still there, and then security is still there, but with a different set of initiatives and focus. So that's like the high level overview, but open to any comments, thoughts either now or in the next, between now and the next meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think the classic issue is number 3, because that we seem to carry that from year to year. It's very important.
Very.
And I think one of the reasons that we're a very successful school district is the fact we do emphasize leadership development. And I think we send a bad message if we drop this off our goals, frankly.
Probably true.
I think this is really, it's ongoing work, but it rises to the level of a goal every year.
And it was on last year, and because of that, we actually have a couple of teachers who are in administrative programs right now, and we hadn't had that for a couple of years. And it did work. Tim, Gina, and I are evidence of that, so I think it's nice that it is an explicit goal.
We have the whole program Tim's been working on. We had a couple of board meetings about it last
The-
year.
The only issue, not the only issue, but an issue that I was thinking about during the week as, I don't know if it's a goal, but something to consider is a review of our capital spending. We haven't really focused on that too much, and we get it every year as part of the budget. The capital expenditures that we're not going to the community for in terms of referenda, whatever's grammatically correct. But I think it's something that we really haven't focused on in terms of either a short or long-term capital spending needs. I mean, thank goodness the days of the major bond issues have come and gone. We're in the process of, my goodness, paying them off. I remember when they were taken, paying them off, paying them down, which is great. But I think the community has an interest in how we spend our money. And I'm just thinking about whether or not this is something that ought to be carried forward in terms of analysis of our capital spending. Just
I
something to
think
consider.
that Kelly planned to do that with the Finance Advisory Committee, which could then report out to the board.
Yeah.
I think that's because when we make it a Finance Advisory Committee charge, it's something that will happen every year.
Well, it's just something that,
Yeah.
to me,
Yep.
has seemed to have sort of been
We'll make
left
sure.
behind a little bit. Not that we were desperate for it, but when you know there's something, it's helpful to address it up front.
Steve Thompson does a 5-year capital.
Exactly, but no one.
Well, we can
really-
expand on that, yeah.
But no one, he does it, and we all seem to like it, but I can't tell you we've all studied it
Okay.
in
Yeah, we can
terms
do
of, and really seeing where we're headed 3, 5, 7, 10 years. It may not be a goal, but it's just something I realized maybe we have to pay a little attention to.
And what are
this year.
thoughts about the capital reserve and?
I was gonna say the reserve, they
Yes.
have to vote on.
Yeah.
It's something to certainly
The only
give.
problem is it's kind of ever-changing, it evolves really
But
quickly,
I
it
think
changes.
it's something we should consider looking at.
Yep, we'll
Yep,
do that in
makes
Finance
sense.
Advisory, bring
Makes
it back to
sense.
the board.
It's something that should be put on there.
On that note, is that not all under the umbrella of fiscal accountability?
I never looked at it that way, because I'm really looking at it in terms of what the work that's going to need to be done for the district and the cost for it. Because, as I said, the bond issues are done, but the district's physical plant requires tending, and the exterior requires tending. And how we go about tending it will oftentimes depend how much money we're going to spend tending it. So I look at it as a little, not necessarily under that umbrella for that reason.
But to Jason's point, the 5-year plan and the capital needs and capital
Yeah.
reserve fund are under
It
there.
is.
So it is a focus,
It is.
it will continue to be a
But
focus.
I didn't see that as the focus on the actual substance and content of what the plan is, I guess.
We didn't see a
is
deep
my
dive
point.
exercise into
Yeah.
that in the
Yeah,
past.
no, Jason, no, he's
But
correct.
no, but
It's
it
there.
it is here.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's something we can certainly,
Through
Just-
Finance
yeah.
Advisory.
Something to
Yeah,
think,
I think
something
that's
to
a
think
good
about.
plan.
I think it's a good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
just
great
spend time in
point.
Finance Advisory and then bring it to the board. Yep.
it's great.
I have
Thank
nothing
you.
else to add at this meeting, so I'll be,
Thank you.
No, that's
All
good.
right, that was good. Also good.
Anyone else have any immediate reactions? Or-
Yeah, that's good.
I didn't say anything here I would take off. I think these are,
I love our focus on security, I think it's fantastic.
actually, people ask me about that. I was curious, they really-
you know, I think we put such a focus on in the community that we have to have it on there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
It's just so
we're reflecting
important.
What's important to them.
Well, if anyone has any, you keep thinking about it, I think, if no one has any other comments, and we'll obviously have another discussion at the next meeting, but we can certainly, vote to adopt it at the next meeting. But if there are more comments, then we're happy to have more dialogue.
I just may want to put it 2 meetings up, just to give Michael a chance to look, weigh in, and maybe it requires a subsequent meeting to vote on it, that's all. I really like the full board to have a full opportunity on this. He may-
You
he
can
may
ask
be
him.
good.
Well, I'll ask
He may
him
be
and-
good.
Yeah,
He may be good.
yeah,
I don't
that's
know.
fair enough. We clearly want to get his view. This is too important not to, so we'll definitely do that.
Yeah.
And then based on that, we can decide or if anybody else finds out, has
Right.
any other thoughts, and then we can, there's still opportunity to talk about it, but.
We're doing it so early, there's really not a rush. So
It's
if
nice
we
to
need
start.
another week or two, we should take another week or two. We're still in August. You know,
Yep.
if we get our goals done in September, I think we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, that'll
Right.
be good.
Too.
That'll be good.
Perfect.
All right. So next we go to 10.3, which is public hearing to discuss the revision of the district-wide safety and emergency response plan. And this is part of a process that the district undertakes to put together this thoughtful document in the event of any sort of emergency response and preparing for that. I looked at it as in my committee role over the summer and provided comments, just recently to the district, but this is a chance for anybody, including anybody in the public, to provide comments on this document.
And Gina, do you want to add to that?
Sure, no, I just, in terms of explaining the process, we had initially proposed this plan on June the 25th, and our plan was for it to be adopted tonight after providing the public with 30 days to comment, but we did receive notice from the state at the end of July that we were asked to create a memorandum of understanding, particularly pertaining to any law enforcement or security personnel that we contract with. And in that memorandum of understanding, it would reflect Educational Law 2801A that states that any student discipline is allocated only towards school administrators and not the responsibility of our security personnel. So we did solicit stakeholder feedback. We incorporated that, as Scott had mentioned, some edits into our plan, and also attached our contracts and the memorandum of understandings that were created with our guidance from our legal counsel, and that is now up for public comment for an additional 30 days. And it will necessitate an additional board meeting on September 26th, because the state has said also that this entire process had to be completed and submitted by October 1st.
Every school has been asked to do this, and I am sure that we are going to be one of a few that are going to have it in by the deadline of October 1st. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And you will all come here one extra evening. so
Gina,
that
if
you
you,
can
well,
look at your
or
timelines.
we could do that meeting early in the morning.
Oh, we could do that.
That's another option.
I mean,
Oh,
that would
why
be
not?
maybe better.
Could be
It's a
better.
one-issue meeting. Why don't we do it in the morning,
We
early?
only need-
Only 4. Maybe better than keeping
That's
people
fine.
hanging around till 7
All
o'clock.
right, so ask Janine
I
if
will.
she could send something out to the board, seeing who can do which time, and then
Yeah.
we'll see if we can
Okay.
do that. That's a great
Oh, I throw
suggestion.
muffins.
You got like a few good suggestions. Oh, you're keep striking on all cylinders.
We'd like to bring breakfast.
Wow.
Yeah, Gina, you bring the bagels.
Yeah, a lot of
That's
coffee.
great,
Yeah, no, I think it's important.
especially if it's just.
7, 8 meetings in 1 year.
Yeah, really.
Thank you, Gina.
So an 8:30 time is okay?
For what?
No, he wants 7 a.m.
No, it's like
He truly
7:15,
wants 7.
7:30.
Yeah.
Early.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7:30, so we'll be in and out shortly, so 7:30 would be
Perfect.
perfect.
Then you guys can get to work.
Actually, you may want to make it at 7, because otherwise nobody's
Yeah, they
going to
won't
get
get
in.
Ah,
Yeah,
even better.
you won't get in.
7:50.
Good thing your superintendent gets up at 4.
7:00.
Well, it could be a snow day, people ask you for what the weather is. You know?
45 days from the start of school is the first snow day. That's what happened last year.
So if anybody in the public has any comments on the document, obviously, this is the window
at
to
7 a.m.
Send them in. All right. With that, we go to staff reports.
All right, well, we covered our summer projects at each building, which was an incredible amount of work. I have a little bit of an enrollment report. We are approximately 3 students off from the demographer's projection at this point for the start of school. That is pretty good.
Yeah.
And especially since, believe it or not, there will be people registering their children in the next 5 days. People just think I just have to do it the day before school. I mean, it's not that they're neglected parents, but they just do it, right?
Very cool.
So they were very close on that. We have our homecoming coming up in October. That will be October 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, with homecoming games happening at various times that will be posted. And we will be out on our new turf field, and we will have rented lights for our homecoming week, which is a great time for everybody in this community, so I invite the community to come. I would like to get to some academic things. We received from New York State Education Department awards of school excellence for Coman Hill and Byram Hills High School. We just
Wow.
received those over
Oh,
the
wow.
summer, right?
That's really
Which is
nice.
fantastic. They are recognition schools for student achievement. And the last, I included a lot of material for the board to look at, just to, so you take note of it, about the Westchester County Property Taxpayers Protection Act, and what's going to happen as a result of that. We are told that we will be receiving about $445,000 in our sales tax share. Don't get too excited, this is a 2-year thing, and the sales tax lives forever, and property taxes do not stay frozen, so I hate to be a pessimist, but really, that's the reality. Other exciting things, we have NYSSMA. We have had a couple of students this summer, Nate Bergman and Grace Bird, who were invited to NYSSMA in the mixed chorus assignment. And then we have 2 runner-ups, Mark Fackler and Jake Wild. So we're really proud of that
Well
program.
done.
That program is
Congratulations.
fantastic.
Well done.
The board will note in my notes, also, one more political thing, just that the Commissioner of Education, Mary Ellen Malia, is no longer, and we will now have an executive deputy commissioner, Beth Berlin, who will be acting until they figure out what they're going to be doing at the State Education Department. That was rather abrupt and
Yeah, that was.
It's upsetting, she was very supportive.
I think it's a hard job. It's not one that I aspire to, let's just say. And
That's a relief.
yeah, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay put. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is our board president. You didn't know I was going to say this.
No.
But at the convention expo for NYSSBA, Scott is front and center on the agenda. And he will be speaking with Mark Brackett, who is the founding director of the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. They will be the guest speakers talking about effective interpersonal communication through emotional intelligence. Nice. board
Now everybody's gonna
president.
come to make faces in the audience.
Yeah.
Did you get board
Very
permission to do this?
nice.
God, is this in Rochester?
It's in
No,
Rochester.
we're all going to Rochester.
We're all going to Rochester.
Field trip.
Yeah.
I'll scream in.
Live stream it.
Tim needs approval.
Find out if we can
I think
live
that's
stream it.
fantastic,
That'd be
Scott. That's really great.
We'll have to ask
I mean,
them.
you do a great job of being really invested in public schools and in students' mental wellness and in advocacy for this board. And, just to see you doing this on top of everything you're doing with West Pud and everything else, it's a lot.
Thank you.
And Mark's a great speaker, we heard him.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Very good.
Yeah. Good luck to you.
That's great to be.
And good luck to you tomorrow.
Scott.
Tomorrow is our opening day for teachers, and
Yes.
Scott and I will be addressing the faculty tomorrow morning.
Yep.
8:30 at the high school, right?
8:30, we
It's at the high
officially
school.
start at 9, so
The
as
high
long as
school.
you get there before 9,
Oh,
you're
it
okay.
is? I'm glad you said that, I would have gone to Crittenden.
Well, that's why I said.
Oh,
it.
that's right, I would have gone to
The- the-
Crittenden.
I would've given,
Crazy.
I would've given the other
That's right.
speech.
The letter that Jen sent did say the high school.
I know, but
I'm sure, I just assumed, there always
We've got
is.
people going to the middle
Well,
school.
why is it at the high school this year?
The auditorium was, at the middle school was going to be redone. The carpet was going to be torn out.
Okay.
And we thought the high school would be
so
finished
nice
sooner.
there.
Yeah. All right, great.
You might put a sign on the door.
Hopefully they've organized
They'll figure it out.
practices so we don't have 100,000 kids here pulling in
Well,
at
the
the same time
practices
as
will probably start
faculty.
earlier. They probably start around 7 this
You
time.
check with Steve, I know
It's
Rob.
starting at 8, soccer
Yeah,
is starting at 8.
yeah.
7:45.
There's just not gonna be enough parking, and that is what I have.
All right.
Okay.
Tim?
Tim?
Yeah, just let me give you a little teaser into next month's full assessment report. So
Yay.
put this up real quick. So the assessment data from the state for the 3 through 8 ELA and math tests were released last week. So I've been busy. It's late. The last 2 years it's been late.
And when does it go to families?
Those reports should be ready soon. I'll check on that. I don't remember. They usually take a little while to go, to get those reports into the LEAR, but we'll get those. Yeah, it's a little bit late, and that's something I think we could do some advocacy work with the state to try to get these results in June. We're moving toward computer-based testing. Hopefully they have the analysis. I don't I think they're putting together their own presentation statewide, but it would be nice to have these results earlier so we can spend the summer doing the analysis and thinking about plans instead of this time of year. But that's my 2 cents on the state
Yeah.
data. We were getting them in July, and the state had promised to start getting them earlier, and then they started changing everything, and we had some issues, so it all got pushed back later.
I don't know if this is still the case, but historically, the issue was not grading the test. That happens quite quickly.
That happens
It's the statistical
Yes.
analysis and the cut score and the distributions, and it's,
And with the change in the tests and going from 3 days to 2 days and doing all that alignment and the new standards alignment, I think the state just wanted to make sure these tests had some validity to
And
them.
then, right,
in terms of
computer-based testing, there's like a whole,
There's a whole adjustment for computer-based testing.
Right.
So there's a lot of analysis that goes on behind the scenes. Hopefully in future years, we can get those moved up. So I just wanted to give you a snapshot. I'm still in the thick of analyzing all the data to make meaning of it. So the raw test scores, the scaled scores are here. To read this chart, just to review, I have the ELA in blue, the math over here by grade level in the pink. We're looking at proficiency levels, so by the state benchmark, they do 4 performance levels, 4 being exceeding state standards, 3 being meeting state standards. So we look at the level 3 and 4 for students who have reached what we call proficiency, at least meeting state standards, and then 2s and 1s. These are all percentages in here. So we're looking at this green band here. Any student falling below that is mandated to receive services. That's where it's helpful to have the analysis done earlier so we can be preparing and looking at who those kids are and understanding some patterns and trends and preparing for the work. We do have mechanisms in place to do that, so we do spend time looking at, we are ready for those kids when they get in. Just a few other quick things. Here's one slide to compare. Despite the fact that I put some asterisks at the bottom noting that you can't compare the tests from year to year because they were significantly changed in 2016 and 18, we are interested in patterns and trends of looking at it since 2013. And you can see the ELA. This is all kids together in grades 3 through 8 in their proficiency level according to those bars. So you see a 12-point increase from 2013 in ELA and 13-point, I believe it is, in math in grades 3 through 8. When I present next month, we'll dig down into this and we'll look at each grade level, we'll look at some patterns and trends and we'll unpack this a little bit. What I'm seeing so far, I'm still in the middle of analyzing it. We did have a little bit of a dip in ELA in 7th grade. If you'll recall, in 2013, 14, 15, we had some low proficiency levels, and then we got back up in the last 3 years. Our proficiency levels went up. And we did have a little bit of a dip, not back down to those 2013 levels. And that's, I think, what's driving that ELA overall dip a little bit. And we're unpacking that now. I've been meeting with Kim and with Dwayne to understand what happened. And we'll talk more about it next month. We did see a big jump in 4th grade. In both ELA and math. I can't explain it right now. I'm still trying to unpack what that is. I have some hypothesis about what might have driven that. We're also seeing some significant gains in students with disabilities in 3 through 8 that are the level of change from year to year. We've been going up slightly, but we had a dramatic increase this year, which is curious to me. So that's something to unpack and look at. I don't have one explanation for it. I have a few things that we've been doing a little bit differently that might have driven that, but right now I don't have a full explanation.
It would be interesting in your analysis to see if they think that investigations is playing any part.
Right.
Because
yeah.
it went up to 4th grade last year.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
So
that's where you
it's
saw
1
the
year,
jump.
so 1 year of data we have to take with a grain of salt, but it does start getting us to look at some
Yeah.
patterns and trends in some situations like that. So I'll give you lots of graphs in my next report, which will look at some patterns and see if we can help explain anything. Yeah, then the next slide is the science scores, which have been consistently good. I don't show you the longitude or the over time graphs here. I'll show you those in my next slides. But we've been at those percentages for many years in science. Just a reminder that in 2022, that science test in 4th grade will be moved to 5th grade. And we're now starting a science committee, and we'll be starting to look at the science standards K-5 and updating our science curriculum. I'll talk a little bit more about the test refusals. I showed you this data at the time of the test. We'll look at some of the data over time to see what the patterns and trends are showing us.
It looks like the younger grades are not latching on to the non-testing.
Yeah, we've seen a decrease in this, and it seems like 8th grade is still higher.
you always see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a little peer pressure in 8th grade might be what I'm thinking.
How do these test refusal numbers compare countywide?
Countywide, I'm not sure. I think it ranges, actually. There's a real fluctuation from
Yeah.
what I've talked to. For example, there's one district that's a neighbor of ours that still has test refusals in close to the 20%.
Really?
Yeah. And then there's some that have it this or even less than this. So it really is a
We're on the
wide
lower end.
range.
I always thought we were on some on the lower end, but.
We used to be until the last couple years, and then now we're starting to get back down to where we used to be. We had a peak.
We're low.
Right.
Do we get fined, but do schools get fined by the state if they're at a certain level of refusal?
So the state stopped threatening to withhold aid if you didn't meet your accountability, but by the federal government's criteria, we have to have 95% participation rate, or else your building will not meet the accountability.
And not
measures.
just overall, right, for every subgroup.
For every subgroup, and
So we're fine in Wampus. we have to
Wampus is
work on
fine,
it.
we are fine in the subgroups, I believe. I have to look at the students with disabilities there, but I think we might be. At Crittenden, we're still not meeting our accountability rate there. So we will get dinged in terms of the accountability, but now there's a lot more measures going into accountability under ESSA than there were under No Child Left Behind.
Right.
So it's sort of is balancing itself out. We'll have to see the implications after this year.
I know it was helpful, before I was on the board, the PTSA and the board had put together an
Yeah.
info session,
Yep.
and maybe we can hopefully
Maybe we
target that
we
group,
target
just
the
to make
the
sure
upper
that they
middle school
understand
grades. Yeah.
tests are inevitable for the rest of your life, but, the implications could be
Yep.
harsh on the school.
Right. So we'll look at some patterns and trends in this as well when I present in September.
Thank you.
And I think that's
Thank
it.
you very much, that was great.
Yeah, so we'll give more details.
Starting out strong as always, Tim.
Well, we hope, we try. It's a little bit better every day, that's what.
As always.
A little better. So, full
Thank you.
analysis next month.
Great.
Great.
All right, just real quickly from me, just an update on our construction project, obviously the big one here at the high school with the turf and the track. We're almost at the finish line. We had a little bit of delay when we ripped up the track with some drainage issues that we addressed. And we had some weather this summer with some rain that kind of slowed us down a little bit, but we're on track to make the second football game. We'll be pouring the track Friday into this weekend. Takes a couple days to set. And we're painting the lines on the track, and then we'll get in there, we'll attach the netting in the end zone and the sidelines, and we'll be ready to go.
Great.
Did a real nice job this summer. Steve and his guys just really put a lot of effort in and really just got to the finish line, so much kudos to them. The RFP for the internal auditor, we had 3 submissions. I prepared a spreadsheet with comparisons of each of the vendors. Be coming with a recommendation at the next board meeting. I would suggest the audit committee sits down and meets the new auditor and has some questions, and I'll help you come up with some questions if you didn't have any offhand.
Interview the
Interview,
auditors.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
Interview the auditor, and then we'll go from there. Anybody have any questions on that or any issues? I attached all 3 of the submissions to the notes if you wanted to review those.
So Kelly, your recommendation is, one is the one that we currently have. Your recommendation is we interview the other 2?
Well, we can, yeah, I think we should interview just one of the candidates.
One other candidate? Mhm. Based upon the pricing. So you'll make that recommendation at the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
And then finally, I received a call from the town of Bedford comptroller, Abraham Zambrano. He wanted to give me a heads up that the town board of Bedford is weighing their options in terms of suggesting a tax collection fee going into effect in the 2021 school year. The fee would be 1/8 of 1% of the tax levies of Byram Hills, Katona, and Bedford.
What does that mean in
What does that mean
dollars?
to us?
Yeah.
So, that's a good question. So obviously it's very small for Byram Hills because it's about $300,000 of our tax levy comes from the town of Bedford residents that go to Byram Hills. But he estimates that for the residents, it would be about a $10 increase per household. And remember, it's not just
That the
Byram Hills.
district will pay?
No, that the taxpayer.
And the taxpayer will pay?
Yeah, it won't cost the district anything. So obviously, I thought this would be a concerning issue for the board, and he was going to let me know they're going to be discussing in the next couple meetings, 3 meetings, and come up with a decision.
Must the Bedford residents who pay taxes here pay the town? Must the town be the collector of taxes, or can we be the collector of taxes?
It's in town law, so it's funny because when in another district, I was in the same situation, and it actually had 2 bills that got all the way up to the governor, and they both got vetoed. So currently, no, we're not able to do so. in Westchester. But
Because it's pretty unique. I mean, a lot of parts of the state, that's what happens.
Yeah.
yes, yeah, in most cases.
It's like some Westchester law.
Yeah, in
There
Delaware
are
County, I
places
know
in
they do
Westchester
that.
that collect
Yeah.
their own taxes.
Yes, like Pelham, I think, collects it.
Yeah.
Certain areas are allowed to, yeah.
Do they use other services?
But they was
from
grandfathered
Bedford?
or something. There was
What's that?
something.
Do they use other services from Bedford? Are they only using Armonk Schools with Bedford Town Services?
If you-
Like Bedford
Yes.
plowing, who plows their street?
Yeah,
Bedford.
they're in the town, they're in the town of Bedford, but, there's a
So they are using
section,
Bedford services?
40 some odd properties that are Byram Hills properties. So
Which they might.
he's gonna provide me a little more information, more of an estimate of what's actually gonna cost
That's
for
our
our individual taxpayers.
Oh,
And I thought maybe it's something I'll keep you abreast of, and if any board member who wants to attend that board meeting and give an idea of, obviously your opinion on that collection. And
Are they collecting it on everyone in the town of Bedford?
Yes,
Or-
Not just our residents that
Yeah.
are going to Byram Hills?
Byram, yeah, everyone. Byram
All
Hills,
Bedford residents.
Bedford,
Board-
and Katona.
A board member go to the town of Bedford board meeting?
Yeah, I just want to keep you up to date on when those meetings are and when they're discussing it, in case anybody wanted to go and voice an opinion.
Well, anybody could go and voice their opinion as a taxpayer.
Yeah.
Not on behalf of the board, though.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
I just want to keep you abreast of that, and it's
Yeah,
something
No, I
that
appreciate you letting us know.
I just don't want it to, if it does happen, I don't want it to be
It
kind
has
of a
nothing
trend
to
in
do
this
with that.
area where it starts
I
to
wouldn't be
take
surprised if we
place.
see more of that.
Yeah, I would like to avoid that if
Yeah.
possible,
Yeah.
but just want to keep
When
you.
is that meeting?
I don't have the dates yet. He's gonna forward that information. He just contacted me last week, but I just want to get that to you.
You let us know when
Yeah.
that.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
I-
Yeah, and I'm sorry, the reason that they're doing this now is in the past, they were able to kind of shoulder it with their actual taxes they could raise, but now with the tax cap, they're saying that, because they're stuck to under that percentage, it's something that they can no longer afford in terms of just adding it to their budget.
we should think if there's something we can charge the town of Bedford for, and kind of create a wash.
It's not a lot of our residents, but it is, it is our residents.
So it's just those 34 households that live in Bedford?
Right.
It's not all of Armonk that's going to be charged then?
No,
Just town of Bedford,
Town of Bedford.
just that piece.
Up off Bedford Greenwich Road.
But I think Ira's right, if it passes, I think these other towns are gonna be looking into it.
Oh, yeah.
For sure, that's right.
It's a revenue generator. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's a tax increase.
Let us know.
That's what it
Well,
is.
Tax
It's a tax
increase,
increase.
Yeah, it's-
blatant,
Yes.
yeah.
But it's not being imposed by our
Another dip
school,
into the
it's by their own
public's
town.
wallet.
Right, not imposed by the school district,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
Thank you. All right.
Come
That's
back with
everything
better
for
news.
I
Stafford.
like that.
I should have started with that, I
That
guess.
wasn't a good report.
Turf field at the end.
Tell us about Carroll's High.
Now tell us
Turf field's
about the
almost done. What's
church.
the
You buried the lead.
We've got
And we will not be charging a $10 admission for people
That's
coming to
right.
our
But
games.
schools do.
Schools
I've
do
been to
and we do
schools
not.
that
Yeah.
charge.
Oh, yeah. Well, the only things that are charged formally are sectional final games get charged. The section one
I went to
charges for that.
Somers to watch my cheerleading
Some
daughter and I
do, they
paid.
do. No, some schools routinely,
Not here.
you pay. It's hard to do when they're playing on the soccer field. What do you do? Charge them when they come into the park their car? It's kind of hard to do that.
So I think for board reports, the only thing I had that I wanted to share, because I think it's important for our community, for us to keep close tabs on this, is we had joined a coalition, this is last summer, right? Or at some point last summer, last fall, just on the salt tax issue, trying to, through a law firm that was representing this coalition,
Right.
put in our 2 cents on how we thought it was arbitrary and capricious at the end of the day. And there has been movement of sort of a next step where there's now a lawsuit that's been filed, and they have a plaintiff, one of the towns in Westchester, and so, this is moving forward. I'm sure it's going to take a lot of time to work through, but we'll keep tabs on it and do our part to try to see if this could be overturned. And then similarly, I think New York State has taken action as well. So trying to sue the federal government. So. Anybody else have any board reports tonight? All right, I'm sure that'll change soon. Yep. Any communications to the board? Okay, hearing none. I would ask for a motion to approve board minutes from our July 9th meeting, which seems like a distant memory.
So moved.
Second.
Any edits, comments, thoughts? All in favor? All right. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second?
All in favor? Good night.
Happy new school year, everyone.
Happy
Happy new school year.